Welcome to Monday Morning Manna. This is Kazar and Jerry. We are bringing you the devotion for Matthew chapter 5, verse 43 through 48. And Jerry, how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus talks about loving our enemies. I just want to ask some questions. I think this is just a little bit of a different format for our devotion, and hopefully this can spark some good discussion for our Lemafutanga meetup. Jerry, Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said, love your neighbors and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Now, the question is, why do you think Jesus started this passage in this way? Does the Bible teach us to hate our enemies, or anyone for that matter?
I think that Jesus starts it this way because we as humans, we tend to believe things based on what we heard first before we actually find out facts. But then Jesus says, but I say. So when he says this, then we know this information is coming directly from the source. And the question that says, does the Bible teach us to hate our enemies? I believe that the Bible does not teach us to hate our enemies.
It would contradict the love of God, wouldn't it? Who are enemies and who are our neighbors? Is Jesus saying that they are one and the same? I mean, according to Leviticus 19:18, can our neighbors be our enemies and our enemies be our neighbors?
Yes. What I mean is our enemies and neighbors can be one and the same, meaning fellow human beings that God has made in his image. For example, our emotions or our attitudes that we have can either bring us together, making us neighbors, or it can bring us apart or take us apart, causing us to become enemies, even if it's for a short while.
And I mean, when I say enemies as neighbors, I think we have to kind of, you could have something against your neighbor, which makes your neighbor your enemy, someone like within your own vicinity, not, or even within your own family, right?
Yeah, I mean, emotion, something like hate can make our friends all of a sudden become our enemy, but it's love that brings us together, making us neighbors.
I believe it's easy for us to, love those who love us back, right? But in a way, Jesus is telling us to love those who don't love us in return, which is, what the Bible considers our enemies. Is that possible, or why is this important to Jesus?
It is possible for us to love our enemies, but not on our own. Because of sin, we tend to focus on negative parts of situations we face with people, but it is through Christ that all that fog of negativity clears to where we see Christ's way. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ. And when all is mentioned, I believe loving your enemies is part of the all in that passage. Also, when we truly have Christ in our hearts, Christ's love is shown through our actions.
Oh, that is well said. I really never thought of Philippians 4:13 in that way, but yeah, if you're going to if you're going to say all things, then love definitely has to be part of that. And sometimes we need the strength to love our enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always think that, well, if we love those who love us in return, just like Jesus said, what benefit is that to us? Loving those who, the Bible considers our enemies, that's the difficult thing to do. Well, finally, the last question here I want to ask you, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 48, Jesus says, "Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect." What does this mean? Can we be perfect and have a perfect love as God, or are we to learn something from this saying?
So I looked up the word perfect, and it says having all requirements or desirable elements, qualities, and characteristics as good as it is possible to be. We can never be as perfect as our Heavenly Father, but He gave us a manual. He gave us manual with examples of how to be perfect. Just like how we need food, water, and air to live, His word should hold that same importance to us. Practice makes perfect applies to this passage. It is a daily thing that we should be doing so that our love, which reflects Christ, is as good as it is possible to be.
That is well said. Practice does make perfect, and we can only strive to be more like our Heavenly Father. But of course we can't be perfect. But just striving to be like our Heavenly Father and trying to love others as best as we could is all that Christ is asking us to do.
I believe it.
All right. Well, hey, Jerry, I appreciate this interview. I hope that those who are listening can benefit from this, and I look forward to our Wednesday evening meetups so that we can have this important discussion about loving our enemies.